perpetual. Thus, the elements of the covenant are perpetual. And the covenant as a whole is passed on from Abram to whom? Isaac. From Isaac to Jacob. And from Jacob to the 12. So that the elements of this covenant are still in effect for the descendants of Abram. Okay. God would bless those who bless him and curse those who curse him. Okay, we're going to look at Isaac. We looked at Abraham. We're going to look at Isaac. Chapter 16, verses 1 through 3. The first thing we're going to note in the story of Isaac hasn't got anything to do with Isaac. It has to do with the unbelief of Abram and Sarah. Here it's instituted by Sarah, but he goes along with it. And chapter 16, verses 1 through 3, we're going to read that right now. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children, but she had an Egyptian maidservant named Hagar. So she said to Abram, "The Lord has kept me from having children. He has promised you that you're going to be the father of many nations. But He has kept me from having children." She's kind of in that thinking, you know, He hasn't done it yet, He's never going to do it. I'm an old woman, you're an old man. If we're going to get with the family plan, we better, do something ourselves. Apparently God can't do it. Or He won't do it. She blames God. He has kept me from having children. And I only have we only have one option, Abram. We're going to have to substitute me for another woman in my place. Here's my handmaid. I'll give her to you. I say this is just simply unbelief. That's the problem going on here. It's impatience. You see, God wanted to wait until it was absolutely physically impossible and demonstrated very clearly it was impossible for her to have children. Way past her time of bearing children before He would allow her to have a son. But she's going to take matters in her own hand. I would like to know, how many of you have ever done something out of unbelief? Nobody. Not a person. I'd like to suggest to you that fleshly answers to life's problems are not an answer, they're a complication. A fleshly answer to life's problems is not an answer at all. It's a complication. In fact, it got really complicated because Hagar got pregnant with a son, and his name was what? Who are the descendants of Ishmael? The Arabs. Most Arabs will claim that Ishmael is their father. Okay, this was not a solution. The unbelief was not a solution. It became a complication. And that's always going to be the way that it is. And it seems that after Hagar conceived, that Sarah reduced her status from wife down to slave again and treated her that way. In fact, there was such mistreatment and bad feelings between both Sarah and Hagar that finally Hagar had to leave. Okay. Ishmael means God hears, and many Arabs will claim him as their forefather. But I want you to notice something, because in chapter 17 there's a clarification. When we are giving the Abrahamic covenant, this very special covenant, it's given, it's repeated, it's confirmed, and so on. But I want you to look with me at chapter 17, verse 15. Chapter 17, verse 15. God also said to Abraham, "As for Sarai your wife, you are no longer to call her Sarai. Her name will be Sarah. I will bless her and will surely give you a son by her. I will bless her so that she will be the mother of nations. Remember back in Genesis 12, it was, I will make of you a nation. Now we've expanded it, nations. And her name will be Sarah. I will bless her and will surely give you a son by her. And then kings of peoples will come from her." And Abram fell face down, and he laughed. And he said to himself, "Will a son be born to a man 100 years old?" Well, as a matter of fact, if you will read Abram's story, he has a lot more kids after Sarah dies. But at this point, it seems a little bit absurd to him. "And will Sarah bear a child at the age of 90? And Abram said to God, "If only Ishmael might live under your blessing. I want him to be the one that I pass your wonderful blessing on to. Let him be the covenant child." What does God say to that idea? Yeah, he says no. He says no. And God said to him, "Yes, but your wife Sarah will bear you a son, and you will call him Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his descendants after him. As for Ishmael, I have heard you. I will surely bless him. I will make him fruitful and will greatly increase his numbers. He will be the father of 12 rulers." Notice the similarity. Ishmael, 12 rulers. "And I will make him into a great nation. But," verse 21, and I've underlined it in my Bible, "but my covenant I will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you by this time next year. It will not be Ishmael." And when he had finished speaking with Abraham, God went up from him. And so he clarifies it here in verse 21. It is not going to go through Ishmael. "I will bless Ishmael for your sake, Abraham." And the Arab peoples have been blessed people because God blessed them. Okay, clear statement. Then we have the birth of Isaac in chapter 21, verses 1 through 7. Just turn with me over there, chapter 21. And the Lord was gracious to Sarah, as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah what he had promised. And she became pregnant and bore a son to Abram in his old age, at the very time that God had promised him. And Abraham gave the name Isaac to the son that Sarah bore him. And when his son Isaac was 8 days old, Abram circumcised him as God commanded. Abram was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. Sarah said, "Well, God has brought me laughter." And there's a hint in here about the community jokes that must have gone on amongst the women when she was around. Well, it would have been funny. You know, I mean, everybody in this room could make up some joke about getting up in the middle of the night when you're 90 years old. All right. Don't do it now. The covenant is passed on to Isaac. Genesis chapter 17, verse 17. Look with me at 17:17. Clearly, it is passed on to him. 17:17 says, well, we just read that part. Jump with me to chapter 21, verse 11. Chapter 21, verse 11. And somebody read, if you would, 11.